Just in time.
At least you're on brand.
Wait, what?
You're on brand.
Oh, yes.
So.
Good, thanks.
All right, good evening. Welcome to City of Ferndale Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, June 15th. And we will call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Cal, can I have a roll call? Attendance, please.
Commissioner Hagfors,
Here.
Commissioner Azar,
Here.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Foster,
Here.
Commissioner Showalter,
Here.
Commissioner Brazen,
Here.
and Councilman Polika.
Here.
Commissioner Hoskew has informed us that she would be out for the summer.
I would move that we excuse the absence of Commissioner Hoskew.
Second.
And Commissioner Akers also let us know that she would not be here this evening.
I would also, sorry, I jumped the gun. I'd also move to excuse the absence of Commissioner Akers.
Second again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have on the agenda the approval of the consideration of the minutes from the June 1st, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Do we have any comments or questions on the minutes? Oh, thank you. Just jumping the gun, just like theme of the evening. Thank you. The agenda this evening has 3 discussion items. No items of order that we will be making any decisions on, just 3 discussion items, that of a PUD application at 700 through 800 Woodward Heights, the discussion of 211 Vester, and discussion of 800 and 808 Livernois. Are there any adjustments to the agenda this evening?
I would move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Polika was the loudest.
Fighting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, motion passes. Now moving to the minutes. Consideration of the minutes for the June 1st Planning Commission meeting. Any questions or comments?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Hagfors.
Support from Baker.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. That brings us to call to audience, which is a moment where anyone from the public can come to the podium to speak on any items that are not on the agenda. Again, this evening's agenda includes 3 discussion items. If there's anyone who wishes to speak on anything not on our agenda, now is the time. And it does not appear that anyone is coming to the podium, so we will close the call to audience and move to discussion item 5A, discussion of the preliminary planned unit development, or PUD, application at 600-800 Woodward Heights. We will start off.
700-800?
Yes, is that what I said?
You said 6 to 8.
Thank you, 700 through 800. We'll start off with a presentation from our city staff, and welcome Mr. Caruso.
Thank you. We scroll down to an aerial.
Oh, I need to recuse myself.
Which one? The other one?
I can do it now.
Good evening, Commissioners. You may be familiar with this project. It was presented at the March 16th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Just as a heads up, post that meeting, the applicant worked on site renderings and submitted an application, and realized that this discussion requires a public notice. So we've noticed that in accordance with the Code of Ordinances. So I'll recap kind of where we are with this, and the applicant's available to answer any questions you may have. So as a little background, this is 3 parcels at the southeast corner of Woodward Heights and the train tracks. The applicant is proposing a mixed-use project of 30,000 square feet of commercial, hospitality, food hall, social space, and approximately 100 apartments. See the highlighted parcel, Woodward Heights would be here, running east-west, and the train tracks running diagonal. This is the subject parcel. Currently, the parcel is about 5 acres with 3 main structures. And with this development, the site would undergo a full redevelopment to create an integrated mixed-use project consisting of approximately 30,000 square feet of commercial, hospitality, food hall, social space, and approximately 100 apartments. The site improvements will include stormwater management, sanitary and water improvements, demolition and environmental remediation, landscaping, exterior gathering spaces, parking, bike corrals, EV charging stations, and accessible pedestrian walkways. Pretty simple, the request before you, if it gets to that, will be a PUD. And I think there are some conditions we can discuss later that would probably necessitate that. In the end, will be the commission's decision. But with that said, I will let the applicant come up unless you have any questions of staff.
Thank you. I think we can hear from the applicant before we open it up to comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Welcome.
Tim Lockman, Robertson Brothers Home, 6905 Telegraph Road.
Dennis Griffin, Connective Companies, 2300 Burdett, Ferndale.
Hello.
And I'll be honest, we don't have really that much change to what we showed you last time. As Roger mentioned, this had to be notified, which we didn't do last time, so that's really the point of the meeting tonight. We'd like to, obviously answer any of the questions you had last time. There were a few that I can go over. The main thing that I think that has changed since the last time we met with you, we did do a neighborhood meeting on June 1st. We sent out about 214 letters. About 7 to 10 people had attended. It was by Zoom. And I thought there was really good feedback. To be honest, most of the attendees really liked what we were showing. We had some of the neighbors there on the Zoom. We also had some of the property owners, the business owners to the east, which I think was really important to have their input on it. A lot of it was what you had mentioned too, some of the concerns about parking. So we are going to look at parking pretty hard. You had mentioned that, a couple of them mentioned as well. And particularly in regard to how it our parking will interact with some of the truck parking to the east. So it's not just the number of parking, but it's also access of where our parking is. So we're certainly going to look at that a lot harder as we get further along in the process. There were some questions about putting in EV chargers, electric vehicle chargers. We are proposing to do that. We've been doing that in some of our communities. Certainly be one where we would propose that as well. So future iterations, you'll see where we're proposing to put EV charging stations in the mixed-use project. Some of them had concerns about music at the venue because we do have an outdoor amphitheater, small amphitheater. I thought that was kind of an interesting comment. So we're going to look at ways maybe to buffer some of those concerns as we move forward. We had a really interesting, if I can, does this work? Yes. So. Thought this would work, but okay. Basically along the train tracks, one of the neighbors had mentioned using that green belt. There's not much of a green belt there, but utilizing that area to maybe extend a bike path. I think that's a great idea. Connect to the overall city bike path, and that would then connect to our basically the front doors of those units there for the edge building. So we thought that was a pretty good comment and something we're going to explore. We still want to work with the railroad CN on potentially using some of that area, if at all possible, for retention, things like that. I know there was a comment, one of you, it was you, Mr. Prelecki, that had made that comment about utilizing some of that area, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So we'll make phone calls. They're not easy to deal with.
No, they're not.
That's something that I know we wrote down last time that we're going to look at. Again, just the truck traffic to the east and how we're going to mitigate that the most. There was a couple people that had mentioned that, and then screening. We'll probably do some screening to the east. It's probably best for us and best for our industrial neighbors there. And then really the last comment, which is kind of I think our purpose on this is don't build elitist housing. We're not proposing that. That was a specific comment from one of the neighbors, and certainly we're looking to build for local Ferndale residents and have an opportunity for them to live in a very high quality new building that's attainable. So we're certainly listening to that, and it's something that we're willing to do. So I can run through this again along with Dennis if you want, or any other questions you may have based on the neighborhood meeting or any other things that maybe came to you after the last time we spoke. We're happy to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Dennis, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's really up to you. I don't know that we have any public here for comments, but if you want to go through the whole program again, you just let me know.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's open it up and we'll see what kind of questions we got.
Okay.
Thank you. So on the matter of 700 through 800 Woodward Heights, do we have anyone from the audience who would like to speak on behalf of the discussion item? Again, we are not making any decisions this evening. It's just an item of discussion. Clearly a mad rush. We can start with any discussion, questions, comments from the commission.
Through the chair? Just to let you know, I'm going to abstain from the conversation tonight, working on a business relationship with Robertson Brothers through my nonprofit that I work for, not personally. So waiting to hear from the city clerk whether or not that's a conflict. So tonight I'm just going to step back and not be part of the discussion. But we'll know by the time that a vote comes around whether I need to abstain.
Thank you.
Yep.
Through the chair, I just want to say that I'm in that neighborhood. I did get the mailer. I just couldn't attend because we were here. So I'm glad it went well.
Shoot.
Well, now's your chance.
Just one quick moment. We have a rule of procedure question. Will you go? I think because.
Yeah, and I'll abstain as well.
The Commissioners Showalter and Baker are abstaining from the conversation, but since it's a discussion item, I believe we still have quorum for the meeting. Just want to, all right, thank you. Sorry, just want to make sure we're doing everything properly here. All right. You want to go first, Commissioner Brazen? Or sorry, or
Oh, no.
sorry, I was kind of. I know that as a you mentioned that you live in the area, so I didn't know if you want to start us off there.
No, just in general, I like the project. I'm excited to see development in that area of the neighborhood. And are there any major discussion items we want to touch on? But I don't want to go out of order for that.
Yeah, I really like the project. I liked what you presented the first time. Like you said, I looked through the documents. I didn't see anything, significantly changed. I'm glad that you're considering all the ideas that were presented at the last meeting, as well as I'm really glad that you reached out to the neighborhood and communicated with them. It probably saved you from having a number of people here tonight. Yeah, I think it's great. I really support it.
Through the chair. So I will again just repeat, like the residents told you about the parking, making sure you're looking at it depending on what your uses are as well. Because if you're proposing pretty much one spot per residential unit, making sure you take into account some people have two vehicles, if it's a couple, or they have guests that come, and if you have evening activities at all your many establishments, that could be a conflict. So keep that in mind. And along the lines of parking, when we do kind of look at the site review, I would like to see some kind of landscaping buffer along Woodward Heights there. I understand that with the limited space, having that as parking is going to pretty much be the only way you guys would be successful, but making sure that you kind of have a proper screening to the sidewalk into the bike lanes there that really kind of hide it from it. You know, the building's going to look amazing. You don't want to take away that look by having a bunch of parking spots visible.
Okay.
And then just kind of last comment is, you know, I don't know how many of the units in the proposed development are going to be ADA accessible, but just making sure, again, with designing for income level that is Ferndale-like, also designing for people with all abilities is going to be important for the development. So.
Through the chair, I like the development. I have a couple of questions that may be concerns. Is the hours and anticipated event size? So immediately to the west, there's a quiet neighborhood street that is kind of like a thoroughfare, but it really shouldn't be one. And I'm wondering like how many people are leaving at a time and how that might impact the area, because it's really, you know, one driveway. And just like to have a little understanding about that. And another item is, as a PUD, we talked briefly on public benefits, and I'd kind of like if they could remind us or go over or suggest any new ones.
Sure. I think one of the themes of my development style and Robertson's as well is we're local. That's the intent, is to get more local proprietors here. And the first ones we have on board are Royal Oak and Ferndale. And an example of what like an event may look like is what you see now with when Drifter's activated or Urban Rest is activated. I imagine it's going to be that continued type of local proprietor. Their families close up shop and go home, generally. And in terms of the idea of like larger events, I don't see that being a routine item in our green space. We see that more passive green space for everyone to enjoy. And if there were events, they'd be like well notified for everyone. If it's, I know oftentimes Zach and Mary will have events for dog adoptions or brew events like that, but there's full notification. So in terms of like a concert series or anything like that, I don't imagine it. In terms of the public benefit, I think that technically a major portion of it is stormwater. We've had problems through that neighborhood repeatedly with backups in the buildings. You know, we deal with it all the time. I mean, I can't sleep at night when I see big red blotches coming across the radar. You know, so that's going to help with 5 acres of getting, you know, that taken care of. I think the continuity of the existing infrastructure from the bike lanes and the dedicated bike lanes on Woodward Heights and having that connect directly into our site is amazing. You know, I just commend Ferndale for, you know, realizing that you lead with infrastructure and projects follow. You know, this is not an island. This is a thoughtful design based upon those components. Adding green space, there's really anything that's green out there now is behind buildings, and it's mostly just trees and rail right away. So there'll be a safety feature for certain. Nefarious things sometimes happen back along the tracks in the buildings. The police have to go back there oftentimes just for the regular patrols. So that's going to be a great benefit just for safety. I did like very much the neighbor's comment about connecting along the tracks through. I think that we're going to get blocked by some of the buildings further south. But I think that there's still some ways to, you know, work really by the drifter section and just have like natural progressive track or paths through the site that are really privately owned but accessible. That happens now in plenty of the buildings back there. So hopefully that answers your questions. if I wasn't clear on anything, you just let me know.
Thank you. So I certainly don't want to require a plan for peak, like expectations of traffic circulation. I certainly don't think that we're the community that requires that. However, would like to mitigate for it, so I think that to see a traffic study provided with the site plan applications of the next meeting would be really useful. I think there are concerns just having the one driveway to show, what would circulation look like at max capacity. Again, I don't want to design for max capacity, but I also want to be able to help mitigate it if that, if we do have a situation like that, which will, I'm sure, happen on occasion. Just to kind of, be able to plan for that worst case scenario. Again, not design for it, but plan for it. And see that it's maybe not too much risk. Sorry, I lost it. And then, so in terms of I don't know, anything else in terms of the traffic circulation, any further comment on that? I was going to move on to public benefits as well.
Through the chair, traffic circulation, I do see that you have that access to, Myrtle and Drayton as kind of exits. So I think maybe then if those technically are drives, maybe signage. It would be good to see kind of a signage package to show that you're kind of directing people to the fact that there was other ways out of that area instead of going right to Woodward Heights. That may be helpful.
Yeah, those are really great comments. And we have some firsthand experience on how we believe the traffic is going to move through there. Drifter does a good job with their signage when they're activated. And we have kind of a one-way configuration, which I think we're going to promote in between the buildings, have that one-way in. And then guests still come through Myrtle. People, once they get familiar, the more people get familiar, then there's, people want the easy way in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll discuss that with the traffic engineer as well, just so, it'd be worthwhile for them to be out there a couple times when Drifter's fully activated.
Yeah, and then maybe also for that main drive on Woodward Heights, maybe also additional signage alerting people that there's a sidewalk and there's a bike lane, so you can't just veer out and look for a car coming. You need to be looking for all modes of transportation.
Yes, and sorry, actually, it's hard to tell without the site plan. But is to the right of Drifter, is that actually on the site, that alley access or?
Yeah, that's part of this parcel, right up to the edge.
So sorry, there are two drives on Woodward Heights and then the Myrtle and the Drayton. So that certainly should help, but it would still be beneficial to see that traffic plan. I would like to hear others' opinions, but to be honest, I'm a little unconvinced about the public benefits, and I would really maybe just like to discuss it a bit further. I certainly think that, thank you, that is a great development, and I think it will be a huge community benefit. However, what I see is just what we would typically require from each of our developments. We have stormwater expectations, pathway expectations, and just related to safety and fire. I don't necessarily see how this goes above and beyond what we would typically expect from a development. And so, I think it looks like a great development, but I would like to hear more how this actually, and thank you, Kate.
12 points.
We have the 12 points of the PUD from our ordinance for the qualifying conditions to actually meet the threshold of what we require for the PUD. So preservation of significant natural features, a complementary mixture of uses, which I think we do have, sustainable building and site design, open space greenways to link adjacent greenway corridors. Again, I think the intent is to be above and beyond what we would typically expect of a development. Transition areas from adjacent land uses, provision of affordable housing units, diversification of housing types provided in the city, preservation of historical buildings, which I do believe we hit there too. And so, again, as I'm saying this, I know that we do hit them. I just really want to make sure that we're getting the point across that we are going to require that this meets the threshold of the PUD to allow for, and then I guess my next question would be, as we and sorry, I didn't actually read all those, there's a few more, but we, because I'm expecting that we'll also have request for variances from the typical standards of zoning, which is typically why we would require the PUD. And since we haven't seen a site plan, I don't know if you, do you know what you will be requesting, but that might be something that we could go over as well.
I think the primary request for the variance, and thank you for that, because, and we should have been more prepared to expound on those, but I think we'll be able to satisfy you on those in better detail for certain. As you were reciting them, some of them are apparent.
Kind of like,
already.
yeah.
We got that. We're hamstrung quite a bit by the DT easements that are in the northwest corner of the site. Because if they weren't there, we may even be coming through like a traditional rezone. That building probably would have been slid right up near Woodward Heights. We just can't get in there. So that's probably the major variance. I think we're hitting the parking and green space calculations from a traditional standpoint. The mixture of uses, mixed use gets us pretty close, but not all the way there. So that's where we evaluated those and we were led to PUD. So it really will stress the public benefit component of it and explain the, kind of the variance components, which is, I think, going to be primarily in the northwest corner of the site.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the benefits, what we might like to see if we think that they hit the threshold? What we would like to see further from them when we see them next? We're going to become best buds through this process.
Kind of along the lines of the PUD and how does it benefit the community? I mean, I don't believe, it wouldn't be necessarily a requirement, but maybe just a suggestion along the lines of kind of beautifying Woodward Heights with like a nice landscape for the parking. Maybe doing something special with your round entrance off of Woodward Heights, It's going to be there, but, maybe it has a piece of art in the middle of it, or maybe it just makes it more of a focal point where, again, it's like further beautifying that area with the project. So just a small suggestion, but again, I don't believe there's any legal standing behind that.
I think that's wise, and we like that as well, where, our clients have kind of picked these spots and personalized them. Drifters personalize that space a little bit with their own plantings. But when we make some of the edits on the main building, we're going to have some pathway connections. So I think we'll see that kind of plaza feel. Okay. And we'll be able to hit it with some artwork and, relaxation spaces for certain.
Okay.
Speaking of that circular driveway, that is existing, and I get why you would want to keep that. Not sure it necessarily probably doesn't meet our ordinance in terms of our new, what's it called? Access management plan.
I can't recall when there's been a vehicle on it, other than like a vendor. It doesn't access the building for any reason. It's just kind of useful for like a patio space. So maybe we just.
Well, is it also useful for deliveries? I think if there is some sort of benefit that doesn't necessarily increase traffic along, the pathways there, I don't know that we would necessarily make you take it out, but it also, if it's not useful and it has a better benefit as patio or something else.
The chair, when I've seen it, I've seen food trucks use that as sort of a setup space.
So we can do a closer study, and maybe that's one of the instances where we'd be asking for a variance.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if you look on Google, they just have picnic tables lining Yeah, that's all I've ever seen is just people sitting there.
Through the chair, I'm trying to think of what we could ask for, and I'm not trying to like, be greedy, but going down the list, maybe sustainability, is there anything, can you talk about your strategy for sustainability and how you might take that further on this site to be a bigger benefit than the standard?
Most of our sustainability approaches is on energy, so we generally add very boring things, but additional roof insulation. For lighting, we try to keep lighting on the buildings as much to get into parking lots and keep low lights. And we did the same thing at Iron Ridge, for instance. So the sustainability is trying to keep the power down on this building as much as possible. Our tenants themselves are very good in this entire area on their own recycling programs. And that's a beautiful thing about being local, because everyone in our business community is ahead of us in terms of their business sustainability. The rest of it is, there's much inefficiency in a big portion of this building if we were to try to continue to heat or cool it, so we're getting rid of that portion, and that'll be green space. So that's definitely going to be more sustainable. We'll be able to lose some stormwater in our major green areas. There's a significant space, as you can see on the plan there, one of the larger ones in the city. So I think that's a good opportunity. In terms of the...
I'm sorry, can you detail out that, what portion of the building are you going to be removing?
One more. So that portion here is proverbially too much building to fit in this bag and have it be a comfortable site. So there's about a 7,000 square foot space there that we want to deconstruct. And that'll make the kind of open space for Kyle's Event Center, and then make the green space for a larger plaza.
Thanks. Apparently I'm better at reading site plans than renderings, which is the opposite of most people, but a little confusing. Thank you. The renderings are beautiful, by the way. Any other questions or comments for the team? Anything we want to see before they come back? Many more beautiful and expensive plans for us. All right, do you have some good marching orders in terms of what we want to see then, before we see next?
So I think our next presentation will be the full package.
We go to council next, or is it back to plan? Back, okay. Yeah, so we'll submit, I think we'll include a PUD plan that really, specifies on a site plan the areas that we're really proposing as a public benefit. So I think that's good feedback and something we'll definitely start marching toward.
And we'll keep in touch with Roger and Kyle. There'll be some unit count changes. I think they're going to go in the direction we're talking about to alleviate parking. And if they're static, it'll be a one-for-one type of change. We're working on some of the design elements of the housing. And that's another thing about the design of this unit with Krieger Clad. Did a really good job that 25% of the units are walk-ups, which is amazing. So it's taking advantage of the amount of green space we have, so people can have like private entries. It's good for for living space and for energy and as well.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Is this on? Can you hear? Yes?
No, I can hear you, but not through the...
So it's in there. Just to add one thing. So we'll be talking to the applicant soon, but we do have an inclusionary housing policy. If it applies to units, 25 units or more, and at least one of the following: city-owned or city-acquired land, and request for tax incentives. So we haven't spoken to them yet. I assume they might be seeking brownfield?
Yes.
Yeah. So at that point, 25% of the units would be affordable too, just so you know.
Thank you. We, if you are going to be using affordable housing as one of your public benefits to argue your PUD, then we would like to see that that is separate from the brownfield stipulation, because if you don't end up getting your brownfield development, then it removes that affordable housing component and doesn't actually provide that PUD benefit. So I just want to caution you there that we would expect that. And then just one more thing, I would appreciate, I don't think you have too much of an issue to worry about, just if we might have some, since you have such great partnerships, there's a few people that need to be recusing themselves. So when it comes to us actually voting on your order, if we could have asked maybe just for a little bit of time so we make sure that we can have a full quorum for your project. There's 3 of us that have to recuse, so again, great partnerships, and we're looking forward to seeing you back hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I may have to.
Yeah.
So worst case
Well,
scenario.
we're planning for
Yeah, worst case scenario.
worst case scenario.
Yeah.
All right, on to 5B, discussion of 211 Vester multifamily development, and we'll start with a presentation from city staff. Looks like Mr. Bryce will be presenting.
Hello, good evening, planning commissioners. This is another repeat item, but there's some substantial changes here. So this is 211 Vester. This is located on the northeast corner of Vester and Bermuda. So if you can picture it, it's sort of behind Ferndale Lofts, Mescal, that area. Just down the street from all the other activity on Vester. Right now, it's an existing multiple family house. If you look at it, it really looks like a single-family house. It definitely has a residential character to it. But there are, I believe, 4 units? 3 units there on site. So the applicant came before you as a discussion item last year, almost exactly 1 year ago, in fact. They brought in a proposed 4-unit building. There was some discussion. I did include the minutes as part of your packet. But since then, the applicant has returned. They have changed the design somewhat.
Somewhat? It's totally different.
As I understand it, the site plan is pretty much similar to what was proposed. So we do have the property up front with parking in the rear. They're fairly close to some of our requirements. However, as some of the general murmurs and comments have noted, there's a pretty large redesign of the structure itself. So they're proposing 6 units now. The structure now has some pitched roofs. In my opinion, it's a little more residential in character, perhaps. I noticed one of the comments from the last meeting was a concern over privacy. Due to the building's height and the rooftop patio at the time, people were concerned about those on the rooftops, eyeing over the neighbors nearby. So as I understand it, the rooftop patio has been completely removed from this proposal. I believe it's also a little bit shorter in terms of height, so it's not quite as, towering or massing in the neighborhood. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the applicant up, and he can go through this in greater detail.
Thank you, Kyle. Welcome, Jason.
Good evening, Jason Krieger. I guess I could say Krieger Clad Architects, but this is a personal project for me and my partner. You know that saying that, the worst car on the block or the car that never gets worked on is the mechanics? Well, we've been working on this for years. Because we're working on our clients' stuff and not this. So we just keep trying to push this down the road. So anyways, as stated, yeah, we were before this body about a year ago. In fact, it was during COVID. I think it was a Zoom call. We did that. And we keep trying to move this down, or down the road. So anyways, the initial plan, really was just too large. We felt, and I'm just gonna be frank, I rolled this out to my wife who actually manages this, and she's like, just said, "Are you nuts?" She goes, 2 bedrooms? No way. I mean, she's like, because right now on that property, there's a 2-bedroom and there's 2 ones. She goes, "I can rent 1s all day long. 2s, forget it." So we said, all right, let's go back. And we also spoke with other investors who invest in smaller, like developments like this. So we actually, swallowed our, pride, said, okay, you're right. And went back and redesigned it. And so now we have 6 units, all 1-bedrooms. And we actually think it's a better development. It's smaller in scale now. We have 6 parking spots, so that is a deficiency that we're hoping that we can get approved. We've owned this property for almost 20 years, and we've never had more than 1 car per unit. Even in the 2 bedrooms, it's rare to even get roommates there. So we feel like we'll be parked. There is on-street parking, and I know that there's a parking deck hopefully getting built across Kitty Corner. Let's hope that's going through. So overall, we think it shook out to be a better product for sure. We have what we feel is plenty of green space. We have some landscaping that's along Bermuda there. So we have a nice buffer from the parking. You pull in from the alleyways. So we think that's really nice. When you drive by, you're not going to be confronted by the parking lot. We have some outdoor picnic area, some kind of outdoor amenity space there in the back. Bike racks inside and out, so we have that covered. And then what we're doing, and I brought some renderings. I'll try and plug this in really quick. They kind of show it. Along the street, along Bermuda Investor, we have some porches. So the idea is that folks can actually enter their unit from the street. But we had the civil engineer, because the grade actually rises up from the sidewalk along there. So intentionally, we're going to propose like a couple steps. So you have like a nice raised stoop to sit there. And then our ADA access is from the back. So we want this to feel like a cool little neighborhood vibe. You're there. From a massing standpoint, as mentioned, we broke it out with some nice gables. We separated with some glass in the middle. So we wanted this like little mini townhouse kind of feel, but we also wanted it to be contemporary. So that's why you don't see a lot of ornamentation on it. And pop up a couple of renderings, and then we'll take questions from everybody. Where would that be? Yep, perfect. Can you guys see the screen? Mm-hmm. So this just kind of gives you a little bit better picture of what's going on. Landscaping, parking lot here on the north. Then, let's see here. Move to the next one. Yeah, it's fine. Here's a view along Bermuda. So you can see here, these are little seating areas. We have balconies planned. There's generous green space. We are going to landscape it like what you see there. We want people, when they're in there, we want them to be able to engage the street, but we also want them to feel kind of private as well. So in there, that's why we have the hedges planned.
Those are like at-grade entrances, like
They are.
porch patios?
Yeah, correct. Yes, correct. Yeah. So these are solid doors, and there's windows right here. What that is. So basically, these are flats. So this right here is a flat. Here was one there. The other side's a flat, and up above, they're just identical units. They're stacked, 3 on 3. So we're here tonight as a discussion item to, see, what the commission thinks. Is there anything that, is glaringly off or wrong? The parking is the only thing that I think that we are seeking a deviation on, but we feel very comfortable about it, honestly. Everything else, I think it fits within the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Well, before we bring it to the commission for any comments or questions, I will open it to the public. That's courtesy. I don't believe we have anyone. So we will close that public call. And I will leave it to open up to the commission.
Through the chair. So I actually think this is a big improvement from what you first showed. I'm not an architect, but postmodernism, is that kind of the vibe that you're giving off with the architecture? It's very,
Yeah.
symmetrical, a little, like I'm getting Michael Graves a little bit in the design. Hope that's not an insult.
Simple shapes, not, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's a little more harmonious with the neighborhood. I do like the exterior entrances and the fact that the outdoor space is not a party deck, but now it's just individual balconies. Personally, I kind of wish this was being built down the street from me. So I like it. It's very good.
All right, good.
One thing before we continue, actually, I just want to inform the commission, everyone might not know that the city has recently issued an RFP that is asking for development of parking in the 2 city lots, so just to the east of Comos. And so we have approved the lot kitty corner to this for the parking, but the city is also actively trying to develop parking in this vicinity. So I just want to let everyone know.
Well,
Thank you.
If I could be a little clear on that, we're looking for, to redevelop the parking lots that would include parking, but it should include multi-use. So whether that be retail and office with parking, or retail and housing with parking, or a hotel or something. But to redevelop what's a lot of people know as the Comos lot, but it is a city-owned lot, and the Breckenridge lot, the lot just north of the new proposed Vester Flats project.
Is it expected to increase parking count or maintain the same parking count?
Maintain to increase.
Thank you. Thank you for the expansion on those details. I was a little bit focused on the parking because, yeah, it would be maintaining or increasing, but increase, or not just keeping the parking. We'll have to park the uses, but then also include extra parking. So
Exactly.
Okay. And that's what I was focusing on, is the intention is to, to increase or maintain?
To either maintain or increase, depending on the project. So we're not going to lose parking. We're not going to lose public parking. And Roger and Kyle, keep me honest here.
Yeah.
But that's the intention. So as long as we can maintain the current number of public parking spaces, it may need to increase to support the new use.
Right. How many parking spaces are there now?
46 in lot 13 and
Como's lot.
52
Around
in the
100
Breckenridge
plus.
lot, yeah.
Okay.
So I think the councilman's absolutely correct. In an ideal world, we'd be looking for a project that can give us some housing or perhaps retail, and then some structured parking with all just a net gain of parking. So, we're issuing the RFP, and we will see what we receive, but those are our hopes.
All right, and thank you, and sorry for the little sidebar there, but I thought, my understanding was that we were actually increasing parking, and I thought that was important for the conversation, but I think also the development in the area, the potential development, like we said, we'll see where the RFP takes us, but I want to inform everyone about that, as it might relate to the project at hand.
Well, and I guess on the topic of parking for the project, do you foresee the spots to be reserved for each unit, or do you see them being kind of free for all the 6 spots? You just pick the one that's
Honestly, free for all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is right now, and unless my wife tells me otherwise, that's what we'll probably do, so.
okay.
Not sure for how real quick, I know that I typically recuse from KKA projects, but this isn't a KKA project, and so this, and I'm going to talk with the city clerk about the voting aspect later on, but the discussion item, I'm going to proceed with discussing.
Because it's a private,
It's
Jason's project.
private, it's not.
I would like to have Mr. Shoulders,
I would say,
so,
okay.
unless he hates it, and then I'd confuse myself.
Careful what you wish for, Jason.
Yeah. But anyways, how many RPZ waiver because this is in the RPZ zone, and if there's 6 spots, street parking is limited because of the RPZ. How many RPZ passes? Is it 1 per property, or is it 1 per unit, or how many passes could you guys get?
I believe that is a question for the city staff.
Truthfully, I do not know the answer to this. Roger, I don't, yeah, so we can reach out to the parking director and get a clear answer for you all on that.
Thank you.
'Cause I know there's 6 parking spots on the lot, but there's also 1 handicap spot, which probably will be vacant every day. I mean, unless you happen to rent out to someone who is disabled.
Correct, yeah, and we were talking about that internally, and we were looking at, is there a way to, let it be used until somebody who is disabled comes in, and then that gets, given to them, and so.
I don't know if you can do.
Neither do I, to be honest.
Because you have to have it open in case there's a disabled visitor to, one of your guests, or tenants, I would think. I don't know, that's.
Neither do I.
Through the chair, I've got a couple questions. Jason, when I look at the east elevation,
Okay.
is there, what is that? Is that a deck? You can kind of see it in the north elevation too. There's this hole.
Oh, yeah.
That circulation, is that a deck?
Up here.
A porch?
Right there. So right now, that's a little outdoor patio is what we're planning on. That might go away, to be honest. I've gotten feedback from other people who've done similar things, like projects like that. They just say that people go up there, leave their junk, it's a mess, blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah,
that might turn into another like extra storage or something like that.
When I looked back at our minutes, and unfortunately our minutes from our meeting a year ago detailed, it's not unfortunate that they detailed our public comment, it's fortunate that they did, but it's unfortunate they didn't really capture the detail of the discussion amongst the commissioners. But one of the pieces of public comment was from the neighbor right next door on the east side, wondering about rooftop patios and that sort of stuff. So that's why I asked about, is this a porch? And are you going to be as close to your neighbor on the east side as you currently are? Because right now you're like a little skinny sidewalk width from that neighbor. Is it pretty similar?
Yeah, I think right now it's 3 feet away.
Okay.
This, I believe, is 5, so it's about the same, but it's
Pretty
a little
similar.
wider.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to know if there is going to be some type of deck or something that close to that east side neighbor. We'd need to know a lot more about how that space functions, how you kind of keep the cigarette butts from getting flung onto their roof type thing. Really, I mean, that's what you're going to do when you're outside is how you use the outdoor space. There was also a comment from a neighbor, and this is where I really wish that more of our conversation at the table had been detailed, because I want to ask my colleagues if you guys remember this the same way that I do, and if we don't remember it the same way, I'm going to go back and listen. So there was a neighbor who had some concerns about 6 units. They said, 3 or 4 feels about right, but 5 or 6 might feel like too many. Well, that's when we were talking about 2-bedroom units, right? So now that we're talking about 1-bedroom units, in my mind, in terms of number of people and cars and circulation, that's about wash. But I seem to recall us having a conversation, and maybe it was with Councilmember Bruner James, about affordability and about thinking about reducing the size of units if it means that it makes them, we realize they're market rate, but they're probably pretty affordable now. New construction obviously is going to be more expensive. If they were a little smaller, they may be a little more affordable. Is this ringing a calls with anyone, or am I
Yes.
crazy? I feel like I remember Councilmember Bruner James talking about that. So in my mind, I look at the neighbor's concern about 6 units. I see that the units are now smaller and geared more toward a single person as opposed to a larger 2-bedroom, and would therefore probably be a little bit more affordable, although we can't, control that. So in my mind, I'm comfortable with the 6 units as opposed to the 4 that was here before, because of the change in the unit mix, I guess, if you will. But I wanted to make sure that others were
No,
recalling
I remember that.
that conversation.
I concur. And I think one of the biggest issues about having more units was the footprint. That the
But it not
concern
going up.
was it was just a large
Yeah.
project for 4 units. I believe that's what the original one
Correct.
was for, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
If I may go on Commissioner Baker's comment about that possible patio space or whatever, I mean, it may even be a good kind of fix to that, is maybe make it an additional amenity space, like work from home office space, if you don't want to work in your
Exactly,
apartment,
yeah,
but
exactly.
you have like a desk area and you can kind of go in there and work. Maybe that would be a good way, because it would also retain that sound internally too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so, this development obviously won't have the same amenities as some of the larger projects around here, so our rents can't compete with that. So inherently, it'll be a little bit lower. We just want to try and do something for the tenants. It might just turn to storage. But yeah, but all of your points are very well taken. We'll make sure that we're good neighbors.
I know we're not really commenting too much on building form, because that's not really in our purview, but I do like the fact that there's so much brick around. I do appreciate that a lot, and that's not brick and other things. I miss your fun brick that you had before. Now you have boring running bond.
Yeah, I like that.
I like the texture that it had.
Yeah.
And I think
I
the
have
street
that in
side texture is kind of a fun thing to have, but I mean, that wouldn't sway my vote one way or the other in terms of parking count reduction.
Yeah.
Just,
That might come back. So
okay.
this was done pretty quick to try and get it in. So.
And another question I had was in terms of the large gutters. Is that something that you could, I don't know if it's something that, they feel a little bit out of place on the brick wall, but I also see that a lot on university buildings as well, large, long gutters as well, so.
Yeah, we'll work through those details.
Through the chair, where are you directing those downspouts to?
So everything has to be captured on site, and right now, I think the plan was to, I say I think because we haven't looked at this in a while, we'll have PVC pipes. The downspout will go down a PVC pipe, and then that goes into our storm drain that goes out to the city. I believe we're
Chance of putting that into flower beds, trying to keep as much water out of the storm, because especially this neighborhood always floods, and if we can keep as much water out of the storm sewers, the better.
Let me talk to the engineers about that, because I would love to do that, but usually the city engineers make us, capture everything right. Now, either way, we're going to have to provide detention in here anyways, so it's just a requirement. So either way, it's going to be captured there and trickle into the, but I'm going to ask him, because that would actually save us some money. So I'll see what we can do.
All right, through the chair, you were talking about potential underground detention, Jason, that's what you were,
Yeah, it'll be required for the site.
Yeah.
But the question there is, can we take our downspouts and just, dump them into flower beds? Which we have plenty of green space around this building, actually, so
Yeah.
I think that would be.
Or one, just to divert something away from the sewer system.
well, through the chair, it would be slowed down, and with the on-site detention, it would slow the,
Understand, but it still goes into the sewer system.
fair enough.
Because then you're going to install a sprinkler system in there too, right, to water. So after everything's gone into the storm sewer system, then you're going to water the plants.
Right.
Fair enough.
Through the chair, just a question about your intentions with mechanical units.
Split systems, probably be all electrical units in there. We might even do furnaces, to be honest. We haven't made a final decision on that yet.
All right, so you're not looking to site anything on the exterior of the building?
Compressors?
Yeah, there will be condensers around the building somewhere. We just haven't located them yet.
That's something that, on the rooftop unit, you have that area between two peaks? Is there some way that you could conceal it on the roof between the two peaks? Or?
We could look at that. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that and see.
Otherwise, I think we would prefer, in the rear of the building if possible. Although, since it's a corner street, we prefer to screen that, as much as possible with the building, if possible, will require screening regardless. So.
Yep, correct.
Anything else from the commission?
Yeah, through the chair. I concur with Commissioner Showalter on the brick, the textured brick. I really like that of the first plan. And I'll be honest, I actually really liked the first plan that you presented, the design, everything. And when I first saw this, I wasn't too fond of it, but after seeing the renderings, I appreciate it much more. The other one's still my favorite, but I like this more now. But I did want to touch base on page 15, the west elevation. You have presented the lighting. It's an up-down lighting. I don't think we allow the up-down lighting anymore, do we? I think it's just supposed to be down lighting.
Down,
So it's down only?
Down only.
Okay, no problem.
For the dark skies.
Yep.
I also appreciate the renderings, so thank you for providing those this evening.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, the renderings really, like, I was a little bit lukewarm on it until I saw the renderings. I'm like, okay.
They're funny.
It's hard to tell.
Through the chair, could I ask a question of the commission? Does anyone feel like they're going to need to see materials on this? I know that was something that was important. The last brick and block conversation that we had on 9 Mile was kind of like, well, what's this block that matches this block, but it's not the same material? Do we feel like we need to see, details on glass or
We can bring samples. That's
brick
fine.
or?
I would.
Yeah, no problem.
I just
Oh,
would hate
actually-
for it to have to go around again.
It-
Get questions on materials. So.
Well, but in terms of the materials, this is clay brick, so it is allowed within the ordinance. It's not, it wouldn't be required any additional variance.
Okay.
Clay brick is allowed, and so, I mean, I don't know if I would potentially need it since the ordinance already allows.
Okay.
But if it were like a burnished block or even a sea brick or something like that, then I would prefer to see it, but it's going to be a red brick, but like.
I would just advise Jason that all future meetings, if you can bring a sample, we would appreciate it. I think that's the way we're moving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is that something we're going to start to require all applicants?
I don't think it will require it, but I think it's appreciated. And I think we would need a zoning ordinance update or amendment to require it. So that's not happening within the next couple of meetings at least, but it would certainly be appreciated if you have samples, especially when there's, questions about whether or not you're going to need
I see
any.
how it is. I'm the only one that has to bring samples.
I just meant that we see you so frequently. You can start the trend.
Michael Gordon already.
We just had a whole conversation about the bumpy brick or the not bumpy brick, which is where it came from. Yeah, he doesn't have to. As we got deeper into the conversation about the type of brick and the preference about a certain feel or type, I thought, are we going to go back in the direction we did with 1200?
You're actually not the first. We recorded it at our last meeting for someone else.
So would this be more of a voluntary kind of show and tell type thing and not as much of not a requirement for the?
Correct.
The request.
Okay, request.
I'm just trying to head off any potential holdups, I guess.
Mr. Bryce.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I do think there may or may not some requirement in the ordinance of material samples, so we'll double check that. In any event, I mean, I've heard you all loud and clear, and I've made that a point of emphasis for all our applicants going forward. Even if it is simple materials, I think it is helpful for the commission.
Thank you for that update. Jason, anything further for us? Or sorry, Roger, did you have something?
Yeah, I'll just add about the parking pass. So the city website states that RPZ residents are eligible to receive 1 permit per residence. So every apartment would be a residence, which can accommodate up to 2 vehicles. In addition to the permit, each permit holder will receive 2 guest permits to use. I don't see that this is in the RPZ, but it could have just been done and not added or something. So if it is in the RPZ, then that's what you get. And then I would say if the resident you were speaking of was Kat, I did have lunch with her today and brought this up. She was happier. She was fine with it, speaking for her because she told me I think she was okay with the 6 units, appreciative they were smaller units. And so price point, she was, just generally happier as a citizen. And I would tell Mr. Councilor Pollock that I had lunch with her, so whenever he wants to have lunch, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm ignoring you.
So it is part of the RPZ, signed as such on Google Street View, so for whatever that.
Okay, awesome. That's good news.
Well, thank you, Jason. We really appreciate you coming back as a discussion item and providing your renderings and your plan for us. We look forward to seeing you again. Is there anything more that you would like from us before presenting your site plans?
No, we're good to go. Thank you for all the comments. We'll see you guys next year.
With a new development, no.
A new project, yes. All right, bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, we have 5C, discussion of 800 and 808 Livernois, a multifamily development, with planner Mr. Bryce to present.
Hello again. So this is 800 Livernois. All in all, this is a pretty similar project to what we saw at 845 Livernois pretty recently. It's across the street. It's just a little ways down, really not too far at all. This is a vacant office building. And we are proposing, or the applicant is proposing, a conversion to studio apartments. So you can see here on the site, the building is up against Livernois. There is a driveway on the west side. It goes down to the back of the site where there's a parking area. Currently, there's about 21 spaces on site, I think 22 with an ADA space. So this will all be reviewed during the site plan review portion. I would like to note that it's a little bit of a strange site. So the driveway does actually slope down quite a bit with the grade. And so this rear parking area is quite a bit below the rest of Livernois. The building, it can be a little tricky to orient yourself. It was for me at least. This west elevation is what you would see if you're walking down Livernois. But if you are standing here in the parking lot in the rear looking east, this is what you will see. So it's something of a tri-level. It's a little bit strange. I'm going to let the architect try to explain it because he really had to walk me through it over the phone when we were going through the floor plans.
Looking west, correct?
What's that? So we do have 18 proposed units. They're all studios. There may or may not be a parking waiver. We're still trying to get an official answer on that, depending on what is the ground floor here, what is down, what is up. So we will have an answer for that, if and when they come for full site plan review.
I appreciate that. I noticed that we don't actually define those terms, I believe, in the zoning ordinance, so we might rely on past precedents.
Yeah.
So thank you for looking into that.
So we do have some renderings here, just to see these with some color. So the applicant's going to, walk us through these at this time. So feel free to come forward. We'll have a little more in-depth plans that'll come before you for the site plan review, landscaping, color elevations, things like that.
Thank you, Kyle. Welcome.
So, I'm Mike Gordon from Moisey Gordon Associates Architects, and with me today is Myron Rubin, who owns the property. As described, it is a tri-level office building, so it does get a little confusing. When you go inside, the back half is split. So people are a little confused. There's 18 total units. It's about 7,200 square feet. The units are going to range from 340 square feet to 540. The building has been mostly vacant for many years. It was only about 25% occupied, and the final tenant moved out in January. As stated, all the units are studio. They have individual entrances, which through this pandemic and through a lot of input we got, having individual unit entries without any common space, two things. One, it gives everyone a sense of their own world, and it also eliminates like a hallway that is just space that is, has to be built in development. So this is a very efficient way to approach it, even though we have to add the balconies to the back. We think it's a great reuse of the building. All units, it's going to be an all-electric building. There's no gas. All units are going to have a mini split service, so there's no condensers to be placed anywhere. It's all through the wall units. I always equate that to the old style motels that you go to. It's much more sophisticated. As a matter of fact, my house is all mini splits. So it's a really good way to heat and cool in this day and age. In keeping with the green initiative and with the requirements of EV charging stations, bike racks, and we're going to look at other things to do that are sustainable on the property. We're actually eliminating some of the concrete. It's pretty much the entire site is covered. But we discovered between the sidewalk and the wall, the sidewalk has been expanded 18 inches. We can recapture that and reduce some of the areas in front so that we can get some more green space. The architecture, we like the 50s modern look of the building. It's really kind of got that, Ferndale funky kind of thing going on. We're going to restore the details, add the balconies as discussed, and each one will have their own individual door, and we're going to use colors and materials. The at-grade units will all be ADA adaptive. There's 10 of the 18 units will be adaptive. Further site, reusing the building, and this, since it's an existing structure and it can be efficiently redone and it's in pretty good shape, this is going to help with the affordability issue, that it's going to be a very cost-effective to do. And as discussed, we're still working on the parking. We believe, and Myron owns another building in Ferndale with 5 units. Again, he's only had 1 car. 2 cars now. But the other side. So it's, not everyone drives anymore. We feel the parking is adequate since they're all probably going to be single occupancy because of the size of the square footage. Also, we believe, Myron's been in this business for 39 years, and we've worked with him on multiple projects, and we are going to put an art component. Every one of his projects has an art component in it. His own building in Royal Oak has a mural painted on the wall. Another project called the Pellet Art, we're putting a sculpture in the center of the complex. So we were just discussing, he's found an artist that we may commission something from. But, okay, yeah, he got the beautification award in Royal Oak for his mural in the building that we did there. And I think that's pretty much the way the building is laid out. Again, it's a little confusing. The unfortunate thing, there's a split stairway that's made out of marble that we can't salvage. That was the only thing that we may remove the treads and try to use them as part of the components of each unit. Again, in the 50 Moderns vibe, we're going to do a lot of built-ins and make a lot of storage in there because they're so small. And really, there's only one door. There's only going to be the bathroom door. So we think it's a good use and it's a good fit for Ferndale. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very cool, thank you, appreciate it. What a fun adaptive reuse of this building. I would open it to the public, but it definitely appears that we don't have anyone. Now would be the time to speak. So I will open it up to the commission for any comments or questions. Mr. Showalter.
Yeah, question. Yeah, we mentioned mini splits. Are the windows going to be operable on these
Yes.
units? Okay, so
Yes.
they'll be able to have.
Yeah. And if you know, there's lots of glass in the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Well, and the reason why I asked, just for the commission, is because when you have a mini split, that doesn't give outdoor air, it doesn't give fresh air the same way that a furnace would, and so sometimes if you just have mini splits, sometimes the air can get a little stale.
Oh, okay.
And it can be, so that's.
yeah, the windows will be replaced because they're of an age and they're going to be operable. So.
Okay. I just as a comment, I don't really have a problem with the parking requirements. They're small units. And it seems like that's kind of the direction that we're moving in with, with smaller units requiring one parking spot, so, I mean, discuss it in a commission item.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I mean, yeah, I like the adaptive reuse of it. I actually really like the approach from the back, especially. It does kind of feel like a motel, but like in a good way, not like 50s is in. So it's like, that's a compliment.
Does affordability count by the hour too? It is.
Yeah, depending on who the tenant is, maybe. But probably one of my like feedback comments or hope for the project is, you know, it is in a mixed-use zone, and I get that demand was not there for the office, so you have to follow where the market goes. But with how quirky and fun this project is, I'm almost wondering if that it would be the northwest 2 units that are facing Livernois. I almost wonder if there's a way of making that maybe like an office or a retail storefront, maybe even a live-work kind of situation, combining those 2 units. So that way you still get kind of the mixed use to the component. And I saw the face, I know. No, I know, I get it. You know, the market right now is really much on the housing, so I understand that. I feel like that little component would make it even more of a dynamic. That little section of Livernois does have some shops and has office. So I feel like that would be the more realistic spot to do that to, given the way the building is set up everywhere else. But again, I think it's an improvement from what's there. That's just kind of my feedback, though, about it being in mixed use.
Question about if we did add a retail component, would that also increase the ask for the parking waiver?
Right.
True. It probably would increase the parking waiver, but I would be inclined to allow that to be alleviated because there is adequate street parking on the spot, depending again on what the hope would be for that component. You know, if it's an office or, you know, maybe like a quick in-and-out coffee shop or like a small artisan or whatever, the parking wouldn't be as big of a demand as if it was like a restaurant or something.
But one of the other challenges to that is because of the way this building sits on the site, there's 3 steps up to those units. We'd have to eliminate all the landscaping in front and do an ADA ramp to that.
Through the chair, that kind of segues into a question I had. So I'm not sure what the aisle width of the drive on the property is, because it looks like it's side by side with another one, which works well.
Right, it's because of the 2 driveways being conjoined, ours doesn't conform, but because there's a cross easement, that driveway will have to remain because it's the only way for those 2 buildings to function.
Because I'm thinking about someone without a car who has a back unit that is walking up and down this drive, and then they're in conflict with vehicles.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that meant there might be a way to look for a possibility of bringing someone through the building if they needed to get front to back without being in that aisle.
We talked about it. The visibility is really good, and we've taken the balcony around so that as you're coming to the corner, we don't have the balcony go to the end, so that the line of sight. Yeah, that is one of the. When you're adapting a building, you can only do so much.
Okay, I want to balance real-time people on site with vehicles, and does that ramp, I mean, is it is it sloped shallowly enough to have a barrier-free in the back, or someone in a wheelchair make their way down the drive safely?
Yes.
That's my question.
Yes, it's not. It's below the minimum. It's below the maximum slope allowed. Yes.
Okay. And then just another observation is a lot of the bedroom areas are away from the glass. So I don't know if there's any way to work daylight in, or if it's.
Well, again, there's no doors on the units.
Right.
So you want, let's say if there is someone who has a guest over or 2 people cohabitating, give some sense of separation. There's multiple buildings. I'll point to the adaptive reuse of the church over here, the building there's bedrooms there that have no windows, no outside at all. So you have to make exceptions when you're dealing with adaptive reuse.
It looks cool.
The chair? I am so excited. This building needs love. Oh, this building needs love. Our dog goes to Bubble and Bark, and we walk back and forth very often to go to dog daycare. And I didn't realize until looking closely at the site plan and now on Google Earth that these really are kind of two buildings that are attached. 'Cause it seems sort of seamless in the front. And I was wondering, it's so interesting how relatively simple it's going to be to convert it to residential. You've got another conversion happening straight across the street from you. And we really didn't talk about it with that project about, how do you need to change your floor plans and your plumbing and stuff, that you sort of offered it. So if there were a desire at some point to change it back or to be, because this is a district where you can do a lot of different things. So let's say 10 years down the road, you want to do like a artist studio with residential behind it, or, kind of change the floor plan. Is there flexibility for you to play with those floor plates? And does this building afford you that?
Actually,
Just curious, mostly.
The great thing is everything that we're doing is non-structural.
Okay, so
So right
really it's
now,
pretty
the
flexible.
two halves of the floor plates are wide, they can be wide open because there's no bearing walls, and there's no interior except between the half levels.
Yeah.
So the whole front half level is one big space. If you go there now, they've already pulled the demo permit. There's just the outer walls.
No kidding.
So
Okay.
if someone coming down the road say, hey, if I want to put two units together or knock this down, it would not be
Or
challenging.
even as the owner, you get a neat proposal from a resident who says, I want to change something or incorporate something. How interesting. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
You've got a lot
and
of
it's-
opportunity in this district. Thank you. I'm so excited.
So is the reason why you don't need two means of egress out of the building because it's a studio apartment?
Yeah, every unit has its own door. So there's no requirement for any common hall or a stairway or, other than, it falls into that category. So it will be fire suppressed because it is a multi-unit building.
Okay.
Well, that actually answers my other question, because I was wondering if there was some type of safety requirement, because if a fire breaks out in the kitchen, the person in the bedroom sleeping basically screwed. They have no way of escaping. But if there's fire suppression, then there's opportunity for escape.
And the in-between floors are poured concrete, so,
Yeah.
it's a real easy, from the code standpoint, to make this work.
I do like the design. I like the fact that you're repurposing an existing building and you're not taking a lot of the character away by doing it. So there's no elevator, so that means that the only wheelchair accessible units would be the ground floor units in the back.
No, the ground floor units in the front are adaptable also. 10 of the 18.
Yeah, I thought you said that there were 3 steps in the
Yeah,
front.
but if it came to that, we have a design to put the ramps in. It removes a lot of landscaping, so we don't want to do that now. So 4 of the units are totally accessible right now.
Okay.
But if for some reason there was a greater demand, 10 of the units total can be made fully accessible.
Okay.
But also the parking's in the back too, so the very free unit makes the most sense.
Absolutely,
for the parking.
absolutely. So the rear units, the ground floor units in the back are below grade. Is there been any issues with flooding or anything? No? Okay.
Nope.
No history of it?
Not that we are aware of.
Okay.
The only flooding we had was from someone who didn't maintain the roof.
Well.
Right now, there's a lot of roof problems that we're resolving. But,
Okay.
yeah, and there was a fire in the building in the past, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's no history of it, I don't.
Yeah, really. So technically, the 4 units, there's 2 units that are half below grade on the north building. The other ones, by default, are actually at grade. And then there's 2 yard drains in the middle of the parking lot. So we haven't seen evidence of any issues.
Well, and speaking about drainage, because it's an existing use, there's no requirement for stormwater mitigation.
So because it is a change in use, I might question whether or not that is accurate. Sorry, I don't mean to question you.
No, I'm the least knowledgeable up here. You guys are.
I know. So I don't know if I don't know if city staff knows, or that might be a question to just review.
I think in our pre-app meeting, I did give you the contact info for our engineering. So I think they've been in touch, and as usual, I mean, whatever
our engineers require is what we do. So, I mean, no matter what, they're going to be receiving plans and doing a standard review, and then they'll let us know what is required.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I really like this project. Looking forward to it.
Thanks. And so just to follow up on that, just for a refresher for everyone, since there is a site plan, because it is a change of use, we're requiring the site plan. Site plans go to fire engineering, all the departments for review before they come to us. So I think that's what.
Thank you for that clarification.
I kind of
For
forgot
the
that too. So.
listeners at home.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission? I didn't have anything to add either. I think it looks great. I also live in the neighborhood and happy to see a reuse of the building. And I think that residential is obviously a great need now. So thank you for your project. Thank you for bringing it to us. I look forward to seeing you.
Question through the chair for the chair. Because it's a change, just a change in use and not any further construction onto the building, does it come back, or is this just a courtesy?
We will see this in the site plan and for approval at the body.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, and again, does a notice have to be sent out for public?
I believe not.
I don't think, yeah, okay.
And I don't think that this would meet the threshold of our enhanced policy.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, I just wanted to make sure.
That is correct as I understand it, because this is a non-residential district, whereas 211 that we just talked about was noticed, or at least they were preparing to notice for it. I don't know if they actually did because the project didn't move forward, but if and when they do submit for full site plan review, that project would be, for example.
Yes.
And when city staff does review this for code compliance, can you take a look at the egress requirements? It's, because it almost, some of those I think could be construed as a bedroom that just doesn't have a door. And just by eliminating the door, does that mean that it's all of a sudden a separate unit?
So that would actually be done at the building review, not through the site plan process, but once they submit full building plans, it'll be reviewed by the building department.
Okay.
So that is, since we're talking process about site plans, that's actually the next step, so we're just continuing that down.
And that's not really in our purview, we don't do code reviews.
No, appreciate that.
So.
Thank you. Myron, Mike, thank you.
That went smoothly.
On to administrative items.
There's an RFP that got issued.
We can talk about the RFP, correct, yeah. So, Councilman Pollico, would you like to speak further on the RFP?
I think our staff knows probably more than that. I actually never saw the RFP. I was just told about it.
We could send it to you, for sure, if you would like to receive a copy. Yeah, so I would say the city administrator, city manager was working on an RFP for redevelopment of lots 13 and 15. That went out, he had a vacation, so that went out before he went on vacation, probably about 2 weeks ago or so. I don't remember the date that responses are due, July something. I think...
I believe the end of July.
Yeah, something towards, gave people ample time. Kyle and I did tour 409 East 9 Mile, the apartment complex here, and walked them to the site. And I did receive a call today from somebody who was in on the process for the dot, wasn't selected. So that's a good thing. We are getting some responses. I think it's going to be a tough site. I think specifically, if we want to talk about lot 13, it's 0.46 acres, I believe, with about 46 parking spaces. Looks like it meets code. So I think one of the goals in there is 250 spaces between the two lots. That's a goal. If you divide that up between the two, that's 125. If the current lot has 46 spaces, or 50, that's essentially 3 floors just to do that. So that doesn't, first floor retail, second, third, fourth, making up parking, 5th office, where's the office going to go? So I do think we're shooting for some lofty goals. We also talk about compactor management. We also talk about affordable housing, EV charging stations. So in my experience in this, I don't know that there will be an intersection where all those things meet. But that's what the RFP is about developers putting their pencil to the paper, getting as close as possible. We don't have any, I don't think, specific requirements of what to submit. Could be a paragraph, could be some nicer drawings. So I'm kind of curious about what people will submit. They'll get off trying to do it cheaply, but any interest we get, I think we can gauge, and then hopefully that will start negotiations. So we expect some incentives, probably. We expect maybe contribution of the land of some sort. It's going to be pretty pricey, so I guess we just wait and see.
Thank you, Roger. And I would just say, I believe also that it was council directed that the city issue the RFP.
A follow-up question?
That is correct.
Thank you.
It actually originated from the interest of putting out an RFP for the Planavon lot, which at the time of budget in March, there was a proposal to spend $650,000 on redoing Planavon lot. And at my suggestion, I said, given that there's 20 parking spaces there, what if we just sold the property for development and just recouped the spaces in the dot, which is less than a block away? And that started a bigger thinking of, well, what about our other lots? So we're actually starting with the Como's lot 13 and 15, the Como's lot and the Breckenridge lot, which most people know by, and seeing what offers we get there. And then in the fall, we'll be putting out another RFP for the Planavon lot.
So I would also like to just address that in the draft master plan that is out currently, there is a direction to administration and to the planning commission to consider a review of all city properties to identify potential sites for affordable housing, as city sites offer the most flexibility in terms of being able to actually finance affordable housing projects. And that, so I would like to direct council that we do, a complete review of the city lots, just in terms of making sure that we're addressing, I believe this was actually came from the KHAP, what was the acronym for our affordable housing plan, and that was inserted into our master plan draft. And so this is actually coming from our affordable housing plan, that we want to make sure that the city is certainly reviewing and identifying appropriate sites that could potentially be used for affordable housing. So I do believe that was obviously considered before issuing this RFP, but I would just also like to make sure that council is aware of that directive, and making sure that we're kind of turning over all those pages before issuing any further RFPs.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker?
I just had a follow-up question for Roger, actually. I completely coincidentally got a phone call from a developer today on several topics, and she said, oh, and by the way, because I know you're from Ferndale, and she asked about this RFP, because she'd been approached to be on a team, to respond to it, and she said, it really feels more like an RFQ, I'm not quite sure how to respond, and I think it says that to respond to Joe. I wasn't sure if it's you or Joe or who I should direct her to, in order just to get a better feel for what type of information the city's looking for.
We put everybody on there. I think it says Joe, Lena, and myself.
Okay.
And then people call around, and then they don't get a response for a little bit. So
where would you prefer she call?
She can call me. So the messaging stays consistent. We're also keeping an Excel file of everybody that contacts us, so we can reach back out to them.
Okay.
And then if this gets us any questions at the end of the RFP period or somewhere on there, we will do an addendum with all the questions we get asked, so everybody gets the same information. So
Thank you.
don't have to bother Joe or Lena. You can send them my way.
Okay, I'm actually going to do that right now. Thank you.
Do you need my direct line?
No, I believe I have it in your signature line of your email.
Okay.
Thank you. I won't forget.
And for anyone listening that would like the contact information, it is on our city website. Any questions on the RFP or discussion around that?
No, other than I apologize, I did receive it from Joe. And I did review it. I just don't recall doing it because it was 3 weeks ago.
Thanks. I think we would like to talk about July meetings. Is there any other administrative items from the staff?
Just a couple things to talk about. On Monday, council approved the publishing of the land use plan to solicit public comment. So the 42-day period starts. Christine presented in front of council. She did great, so we keep calling her out for that. So that was good. We also went, staff, me, Kyle, and Christine went to the State of the City last night and manned a table with the land use plan, engaged people there. Christine is looking to Kathleen to maybe do additional events, a couple, while we're in this 42-day period, either at Schaefer Park with the movie night, we can grab a table and engage people. We could do Rust Belt. We could do Comos in front of Comos. We could do New Wave Bar late at night, maybe midnight, engage those people. We want to get a lot of good comments. So I think we're going to be doing some pop-up events for that. So we'll keep you apprised of that.
Thank you. And just for those challenged at counting days, so 42 days from Monday would be
July 26th.
July 26th would be the end of the 42-day public comment period for our draft master plan.
Yeah, and Christine's the contact. You go to planferndale.com, I believe is all of our the items, but you can comment through there. You can feel free to email her. You can feel free to call her directly, and she'll take comments down. We will take comments anyway if we can.
Thank you. Is there, sorry, go ahead.
I believe this conversation came up, maybe I'm thinking of some other project. But have we created a QR code that we can post around, put them in the parks?
Yeah, so
Because parks are part of the plan. Excellent.
Yeah, so we have this. I don't know much about our bulletin boards around the city, but we can definitely go take a look at that. But we have a QR code. That's what we were passing out yesterday, so people can just scan it and go right to it.
Well, like
In the
yard
past,
signs, like actual yard signs that you can put in the ground at like parks or.
Yeah, and I know that the DPW has created signs, temporary signs to put in the parks when we've done park surveys, and they've gotten a lot of response.
We will take the comment down. I think Kyle will talk to Christine tomorrow to see if we can do yard signs or some signs.
Yeah.
Public
Great
works.
idea.
Yeah, talk to Lorena too about doing something with, to include Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Because I don't want to forget them in the whole mix, because
They're
they're
part
a
of the plan.
significant part of the plan.
Yeah, with the new splash pad, I think it'll be heavily used in the next couple of weeks. That might be a great.
There we
We're supposed
go.
to be, by July 4th, we're supposed to be ribbon cutting, I was told.
I'm gonna go.
Around there, yeah. Yeah,
When
I
is
think so.
adult splash?
That starts at 8 p.m.
And then just lastly, staff has printed out Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances, and I have reviewed it from front to almost back. I'm almost done.
Goodness.
So Kyle and Christine and I will, everybody has their initials on it. Everybody's going to review it from front to back. There are a number of things in there, as in any code around that. There's some inconsistencies in language, things we would change, things that aren't best practice anymore, cash in lieu of parking that we don't do, lots of things. So once we all sit down and do that, we'll make a list, we'll talk to the city attorney. We might bring a bunch of changes at one time, might prioritize what's important and not, but that's one project we're working on right now.
Thank you. I know that we've talked about quite a few amendments that we'd like to see in the zoning ordinance over the years. It's been a long time since we've had any major changes to the complete ordinance, and as you said, it's kind of Frankensteined a little bit currently. So since we do have the adoption of our updated master plan coming fairly shortly, we'll have a fresh new master plan, we'll have lots of ideas and changes to be made to the zoning ordinance. I know that it can be expensive to do a complete edit of the zoning ordinance, but I would implore the city staff to definitely take a look into the possibility of that. I think it really is something that we could use. I see a lot of shaking heads up here, so I'm glad everyone's on the same page. But I think that, I know that's a lot to take on, but certainly something that I think is is really due in time. And I know that we have new staff, we have shortage in staff, but if we could find the money to hire out the work, I think that would be celebrated by all.
Yeah, it's my experience working for many cities and counties. Planners always complain about how the code is written. It's just, I've never found a good one, to be honest with you.
Well, I've written a few, so.
Okay. I mean, it's always hard. Unless you're familiar with it, you don't know where to look. So I read it from, on page 140 of 160 or something. And it was a valuable experience because now I see where the stuff is. So it's like, oh, if I just read this, I'll know where it is. So we will talk to Joe. That was on my agenda to talk as the land use plan goes on. I don't know the cost of that. Not so much the cost we're worried about, but it is a big endeavor. It would take Christine offline to do that for another 6 months to a year. I think I personally would like to get more robust with ADUs. What we're doing isn't getting any, and so I think we have to be more flexible with those, and I think Kyle has certain ideas and Christine. So we're excited to jump in and kind of get that down more. And then I would say, just as an additional thing, I know we had a discussion last month about the set to line. I think we've now experienced 4 properties that have issues with it. This one was the southwest corner of Pinecrest and 9 Mile, the old dry cleaner.
Oh, it's got a weird easement, or a weird deed restriction.
Yeah, we're looking at that. But, how the circulation works, you potentially come off of 9 Mile and then go through and go to Pinecrest. And so if you build up there toward the front, it kind of ruins the entire circulation. So we just keep experiencing it over and over again. And so we don't have a solution yet. We haven't really dived into that, but I just want you guys to know it's a recurring theme.
And when you do go over I know that we have a lot of new staff, so some of the knowledge that used to be here and the memory that used to be here is no longer here. I know that like in the past, I've given presentations on the fence ordinance and the materials ordinance and how those both need to be looked at because I feel that they're lacking. Mm-hmm. And so just to flag that as those are 2 things that I would not mind you guys taking a look at. And I'm sure that every other people have their own little.
And you did some research into both of those in terms of comparing terms and looking for definitions of different types of
I have
materials
it
stuff?
in a commission. It was brought into a commission item a year ago-ish.
If not longer.
Yeah.
They've been longer, yeah.
I think once Kyle gets through it, because Christine's going to review that, and once Kyle gets through it, then we'll probably send an email, because it'll take Christine a week or 2 to read through it. We'll probably send an email to say, is there anything you've noticed in the past? What are your pressure points with this? And then we'll add it to our list and then evaluate what that is. So that is, we're coming.
I do believe Justin Lyons had a running list of zoning ordinance amendments that we wanted to work on that mostly comes from our discussions and from us. So if you just make sure that's included, I'm sure that will capture a lot of them as well.
Did he have that? Do you have access to that list?
I asked the same question.
Okay. I think we have
Text
it.
him right now and tell him to.
I think we have
Let's all do it at the same time.
I think we'll have the list, but we'll let you know.
He's probably showing a house right now.
Putting a baby to bed.
Thank you, Kyle.
He's
Do you have anything to add?
texting me right now.
Oh.
You're listening to. Thank you. Is that all from the staff on administrative items? Okay, so also in terms of our next meeting, summer's always difficult to maintain quorum, especially around holidays, so we wanted to see if anyone had any issues with our next meeting, which is regularly scheduled for July 6th.
I'll be here.
You heard?
The chair, I was just going to mention that if there is high likelihood I would miss the July 20th meeting, but in light of the 5A discussion, if we don't have quorum on that night and I need to hustle back, I figure something out.
Thank you. We actually might have some other issues with the 20th, and so if we actually could talk about the 6th, and then even potentially the 13th is maybe the following
Correct.
Wednesday, would anyone be available on the 13th? And if I haven't heard from anyone on the 6th, if they can't make it.
No, but let me share with you, the Facilities Task Force Committee meets every other Wednesday, and that has been fine up until July 6th, where they now meet from 5 to 7 here, and we meet from 6:30 on here. That also occurs again on the 20th. So I don't know if we want to change hours to the 13th and 27th to make it easier for those members that can't attend on the 6th and the 20th anyways, because that would solve our July issue.
I think it solves a couple issues if we could do the 13th. Then we wouldn't have to have the meeting on a holiday week. We wouldn't have the issue on the 20th, the facilities scheduling issue. Is anyone not available on the 13th?
I'll just put a hold on my calendar. You guys can tell me. I'm here.
Yeah, those work for me for July.
So,
That work for you?
sounds like we potentially have availability on the 6th and the 13th. There are a few commissioners that are absent this evening that we would need to get their availability as well, but that provides some flexibility. And so I don't think we need to make a decision this evening. Does that help you then for July planning?
I think so. If you could give me a quick recap, just because we were.
Yep, sorry.
Sorry.
So it sounds like the 6th and the 13th would work. We have the potential scheduling issue on the 6th. The 13th might prove to be better, but we do have some flexibility. Sounds like the 20th will actually have some issues.
Okay. So 6th and 13th are okay, except for the committee timing, which I think maybe we could be flexible with that. I know Joe has been helpful in the past, and they tried to get out of here at 6:55, and then we met at 7. We did that once for the special meeting back in April, so maybe that's a possibility. But 6th and 13th are possible, and 20th is probably not good.
Probably not good, but maybe possible, depending on the agenda items, because we also have some issues of recusal. We do have a request from an applicant to have a meeting sooner than the 20th, and was hoping for the 6th, and since that was regularly scheduled. But if the 13th to have the one meeting works with all these other scheduling issues, that would probably be preferable.
Okay, I will be in contact with them and Roger and you all as we move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate the willingness to be flexible from everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, we did have a request due to timing, construction, all those things for the Rosie O'Grady's. They have to come back in to redo that. And so he was reaching out saying the 20th is too late. But just to let you know, that was kind of the main one.
Any commission items for this evening?
I'd like to bring up something that was said that I wanted to kind of dial in on about bringing material samples in. And it's something that I worry about requiring applicants to bring physical material samples in, because talking to someone who's involved in the process usually, you know you want to use brick at this stage. You don't have the exact brick sample at this point. At this point in the design, during like programming, you won't have the actual material on hand unless you're going for a specific material variance because your material doesn't meet the ordinance. But if it's just a regular building with a material that's used by right, an architect usually won't have an exact brick in hand and an exact brick, because you'd have to go and talk to a vendor at a brick company, and they would have to send you a few material samples. You'll have to go back and forth with the owner and try to figure out what exact brick they like so you can put it in the specification. And it's usually not ready by this time in the design process, unless, and it's, I would be a little bit hesitant on requiring anything else besides, like, unless it's a material that's not used by right, unless they want to use CMU or a concrete product on the wall. I would definitely require them to bring it at that point. But if it's I would be hesitant to require people to pick all the materials on their building at this point in the design process. Because it's something that could technically, it could be used to hold them to it as well. And I don't know if we necessarily want to do that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the perspective. I do know that we certainly require the building materials to be stated on the site plan, and it is expected that the applicant would continue with a very similar material through the process. Of course, the very specifics of that brick and whatnot is understood to not be that specific. There are certainly other communities that require samples, but I think it's a really good note to take that there be some flexibility and understanding that it might not be specific, but I think in general terms of identifying for our purposes what we're looking at in terms of materials, of whether or not it's compatible with the area, I think to an extent that it can be provided and so we can get a general idea. I think that there is an expectation that we are reviewing that in terms of the site plan per the zoning ordinance.
I feel that a rendering, though, does the same job. And when we say materials, I think it's pointing at an elevation saying brick, CMU, metal panel. And then when you want to go for a little bit further and figure out what the color is and how it works with the neighborhood, I think that a rendering does a decent job for that. I don't know if actually physical material boards would, I mean, if that's something we want to move forward, then that's fine, but I don't see that as super necessary.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I would say that we don't require a rendering either for the site plan. So we would have to consider that. But also, I'm also wondering if because you're an architect, it's also easier to understand. So I feel like when as not an architect, and I don't have the same education and experience and understanding of what that's actually going to translate, I think the rendering certainly helps. I thought tonight's site plan was a perfect example. Not that it was a site plan, but seeing the architectural drawings versus the rendering looks completely different. And since we don't require the rendering, sometimes it can be difficult. Thankfully, we have such great architects in this community that we certainly do often see a lot of renderings, especially at the discussion stage, is wonderful. But so I think those are all really important points to consider before we would come up with any sort of ordinance amendment. And I was curious, I couldn't necessarily find really quickly at the table here, when I was looking through the ordinance, what we do require, but you mentioned that we might have something currently in the site plan section of the...
Yeah, I thought we did during our requirements. I did a quick search. I didn't get to do a deep dive. I couldn't find it, so I will.
I think we certainly state that we can request, additional materials and whatnot. It's certainly suggested. I don't know if it's explicitly stated. So if we were to create explicit language, I think this is a really important ideas to keep in mind and to consider, and probably requires further discussion at that point.
And there are plenty of buildings that are used by right that we don't take a look at the materials by.
No, that is certainly within our purview. I mean, if it's by right, we're still looking at the materials of what they have on their site plan, and whether or not it's compatible with the community. We're not requiring yellow shade, E2-6, or I don't know what they're called. But to an extent. And so I think that's why I'm saying flexibility. We don't need the exact sample, and I can understand where your concern of then providing some false sense of this is exactly what it's going to be. So I think that's a really good point. Any other comments on that, actually?
I guess my comment on it, the point about it being a permitted product is very well taken. Yeah, so to see a sample of something where someone's asking us to make an exception, that does make more sense to me. Tonight, my suggestion was mostly because I saw us go down this path last time when we started to get really deep into a discussion that unfortunately we didn't have that for, about a material on 1200 West 9 Mile. And the applicant ended up coming back for a few reasons, but part of it was that material question. And I was just kind of getting these little tinglies of are we going to have a really deep dive question into brick and hold up a site plan about brick. And so that's why I brought it up when we started getting a little bit more specific about types of brick. But as you pointed out, any type of fired brick would be permitted. So are we holding them to an unfairly high standard? Understood.
Thank you. Any other commission items?
Oh my lord, 8:25.
Bed.
I was asking about that.
It's 10 minutes past my bedtime. It's still
Okay. Well, with that, we will adjourn the planning commission meeting of June 15th at 8:25. Thank you, everyone.
Good meeting.